to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. It would seem that behind the scenes, Eddie Hearn has been successful, pulling the strings to ensure that Boots Ennis doesn't have to travel to defend his IBF title, that Karen Chukhadzian, the challenger, will come to the champion. If you're subscribed to DAZN, and you go to their Don't Miss section of cards, you will see Boots versus Chukhadzian and Bam versus Guevara, which we talked about earlier. Made a big deal about this, that Matchroom had lost the purse bid for the fight, lost out to P2M, who represent Karen Chukhadzian, that Matchroom is failing Jaron Ennis. Made a big deal. That Matchroom failed to get Jaron Ennis a unification match, that Matchroom failed to get Jaron Ennis the Karen Chukhadzian fight on his terms with home field advantage. They made a big deal about this. Now I'm wondering, are they going to dispense the praise as quickly as they dispense the criticism? Because if they don't, that tells you everything you need to know. Simultaneously, the WBA has ordered a Montestanionis to defend his title against his mandatory Shakram Gayasov, which we talked about in my previous video. Another Matchroom fighter. I wonder what Matchroom's critics think about that. Matchroom! Do they dispense the praise as easily as they dispense the criticism when it comes to that? It's good news. They're bringing Boots back to Philly, where he put 14,000 asses and 14,000 seats for little more than a David Avanesian fight. To reinvigorate that boxing scene and reinvigorate boxing on the East Coast that isn't now what it used to be in previous eras of boxing. There are not that many fighters that could draw that size crowd to a boxing match. Good. That isn't a high-profile boxing match. And Boots versus Avanesian, that's not a high-profile fight. Neither is the Chukhadzian rematch, but the city of Philadelphia was so hungry for boxing. Look at how many of them turned out just to support Jaron Ennis. That will likely be the case in Jaron Ennis's next fight, so it's good. Now for the rematch. What does Jaron Ennis have to do differently to put on a better performance against that same fighter? Jaron Ennis is best described as a boxer puncher. He's a characteristic boxer puncher. Boxes when he needs to, punches when he needs to. What he struggled with was the movement, as most boxer punchers do when faced with a pure boxer. That's the kind of fight that Karen Chukhadzian fought. An emphasis on defense and movement, not taking any chances, not staying in one spot, making himself a stationary target, hard to find, hard to hit, on his bike the whole night. It's gonna sound like a cliche, I know you hear it all the time, but Jaron Ennis has got to cut off the ring. That's the answer to those pivots. And that movement. Using the jab, and maybe you don't aim at the guy's head because he keeps slipping the jab. Maybe you aim at his chest. Maybe you aim at his solar plexus. Maybe you target his body early to take his legs away late. What he can do differently. He has to draw from what he experienced in the first fight to put on a better showing in the second, and maybe get this guy out of there, knock him out, because you know what he's going to do. He's going to be on his bike the whole fight. He's not going to try to win per se. He's just going to try his best to not get knocked out. Fighting half a fight. I call it half a fight because you've got the defense part, down right, but you're not showing any offense. That's half a fight. That's a guy who's not trying to win so much as trying not to get knocked out. I expect more of the same in the rematch. Jaron Ennis has got to shorten up the punches, shorten up the jab. Don't necessarily commit to it. Shorten it up like what you see from Artur Beterbiev. Not necessarily a stiff stick, a stiff step jab, but a series of short jabs that maybe they land and maybe they don't, but they'll distract Karen long enough that you can bring over the bigger punches. And keep Karen's guns holstered long enough that you can get close to him to bring over those bigger punches. It's not much chance that Karen Chukhadzian wins a points decision in the city of Philadelphia doing what he did the last time. So Boots is the logical choice to win. The real question and the real intrigue is whether or not he can do better the second time out. Look better. If he doesn't, if he can't adapt and he doesn't adjust, the blueprint is out. Movement is not Boots' best friend. Movement is his kryptonite. It's what you can use to beat him, moving around. So we'll see what adjustments, if any, Boots makes on November 9th. The fight hasn't yet been officially announced, though it might be by the time that this video is uploaded. And as stated, the poster for it is already up there on the Don't Miss section of your DAZN app. So they must have made it. Just waiting to announce it, waiting to make it official. In men's middleweight news, more on the Janibek Alimkhanalai versus Andrei Mikhailovich fight as Janibek heads to Australia to defend his status
in October.
Unbeaten New Zealander Andrei Mikhailovich will take on Kazakhstan's IBF middleweight champion Janibek Alimkhanalai on Friday, October 4th at the Star in Sydney, Australia. 11 years ago, Daniel Gill defeated Anthony Mundine at Sydney's Entertainment Centre for the same title. Alimkhanalai versus Mikhailovich had been due to headline a July 13th show at the Palms Casino in Vegas, but was cancelled ahead of the weigh-in when Janibek was hospitalized due to dehydration. Mikhailovich's promoter, No Limit Boxing, won the subsequent IBF purse bid and elected to stage the fight in Australia. In spite of rumors, they would stage the fight on the undercard of Zhu versus Murtazaliev. Tim Zhu, their other fighter, one of their star fighters.
Well, that ain't the case.
In the Olympic Games in Sydney, 2 Kazakh boxers won the gold, recalled Alimkhanalai. Begzat Sartahanov and Yermanak Ibrahimov inspired many Kazakhs. I grew up with a dream to glorify my country like them. I am very happy that I will box in Sydney. I want to show the world my flag in Sydney once again, as our Olympic champions did in 2000. The fight with Andre is very important to me. He is an official contender for my title. He is like a cloud for me now. I must quickly get rid of the cloud to see the sun. Everyone knows and understands that he is easy work for me. I will knock him out very quickly. Mikhailovich countered, I live in the present, but I certainly haven't forgotten the past. I respect him as a champion, but I know that he doesn't respect me. It's why I look forward to taking absolutely everything from him. I will be writing my name into the history books, alongside Joseph Parker, Marcelino Massot, as a world champion. This is my destiny. It's my everything. I will stop at nothing to make sure the world remembers the name Andrei Mikhailovich. Janibek is 15-0 with 10 KOs and a former 2016 Olympian. Mikhailovich, 21-0 with 13 KOs, was born in Russia but brought up in New Zealand, turning pro in 2018. No Limit Boxing CEO George Rhodes said he is thrilled to bring this fight to Australia. Even though Andre was born in Russia and raised in New Zealand, the fight happening in Australia technically gives him home field advantage in a manner of speaking, because No Limit Promotions, who promotes him, they're based out of Australia. So if anybody is the home fighter here, it would be Andre more than Janibek. And all of the consideration that might yield with the judges down there when this fight goes down. The fight itself is actually right around the corner. Everything is happening fast.
It's a little over a week away. But 2.
It's a mouth-watering matchup where Janibek's powerful and dominant reign as the #1 middleweight in the world meets Andre's undefeated drive and determination, Rose said. It's well documented that nobody was wanting to take on the champion, but Andre isn't your everyday fighter. This is set to be a cracker of a fight and a genuine highlight for boxing enthusiasts around the world. This event will stream live and exclusively on ESPN Plus in the US and be broadcast on Fox Sports and KO Sports in Australia.
Particulars in association with the fight. It was originally reported that only the IBF title would be on the line, not the WBO. The WBO, for whatever reason, did not sanction this fight.
I still don't know what the reason for that was, but I saw a tweet from Aegis Klimas that says the opposite. Aegis Klimas, who manages the career of Janibek, said, this post done by Janibek's promoter Top Rank with a huge mistake, and we as unified champions, Janibek team, announcing that Janibek will be defending both the WBO and the IBF titles. Even we are pushed to defend just the IBF title and go by their rules for a second-day weigh-in.
I don't get it.
It's not just how the boxing scribes reported the story, it's how Top Rank promoted the fight. The way they're promoting it, you would think that the IBF title is the only title on the line. That doesn't appear to be the case, not according to Aegis.
What's the miscommunication?
I mean, it doesn't benefit Andre in any way that he would only get to fight for one alphabet title instead of 2. I don't see how that would benefit Janibek, the reigning unified champion. Why would he only defend one of his belts and not the other?
He hasn't been stripped. He's still registered as WBO champion
on the WBO's website, so what gives? And the most that I could come up with is that there may be something else going on behind the scenes, because you will notice that ranked at number 1 via the WBO is Queensbury's own Hamza Shiraz,
who's promoted by Frank Warren. Frank Warren, who's good buddies with Bob Arum.
Bob Arum of Top Rank that promotes Janibek. Is it possible that behind the scenes, they worked it out to where if Janibek loses, Andre only wins one alphabet title and the other remains vacant, as that's how the story was originally reported? Who would benefit from a situation like that? Frank Warren, Hamza Shiraz. They would benefit from a situation like that.
Igis says that ain't the case. Truthfully, I really don't think it matters because I don't think Janibek's gonna lose. Like I said in my previous video, I've seen Andre, and nothing against him, but unless Janibek has a hard cut, unless he's weight drained, and that impedes his ability to perform, I don't see Andre winning. That's his best bet.
Janibek having a hard cut, that hard cut affecting his punch resistance, and Andre subsequently getting through with something hard enough to knock him out.
And that's too many moving parts for me.
It's not outside the realm of possibility, but I don't trust the overall probability. It seems likelier to me than not that Janibek is going to knock this kid out. He's going to keep his title or titles, however many of them are on the line.
Nothing against Andre, and I wouldn't be mad if he won.
Might actually be better for the division if he does. He's welcome to prove me wrong, but what I think Janibek's going to smoke this kid. Finally, in men's super middleweight news, on the heels of his first professional loss and ahead of his upcoming fight this weekend, Jaime Munguia pushes against the allegation that Canelo carried him. No way Canelo Alvarez carried me. Phoenix, Arizona. Jaime Munguia repeated his objection to Canelo Alvarez's assertion that he carried him, this time without any ambiguity. Asked Tuesday during an appearance at the Phoenix gym just days before his super middleweight fight this Friday against Canadian Eric Bazinian at the Desert Diamond Arena in nearby Glendale, Munguia told boxing scene through an interpreter, "The truth is, I found it disrespectful." Munguia repeatedly dealt with the question late last week during media appearances, including one at Top Rank Gym in Vegas, before Alvarez scored a one-sided points win over Edgar Berlanga at the T-Mobile Arena.
I would have thought it was just bravado from Canelo if I didn't see it myself.
And I'm sure that some of you did too, that there was definitely one instant in the fight where Canelo got through with a hard shot. It seemed to have hurt Jaime. His knees buckled. It looked like he was going to go down, and then Canelo grabbed him.
Grabbed him inexplicably, like he was trying to prevent him from going down.
Days later, Munguia spoke like an attorney presenting a key piece of evidence to a jury. He didn't knock out Berlanga, Munguia noted on Tuesday. The carried question was raised last week when Alvarez, who had promised to stop Berlanga within 8 rounds, told reporters that he backed off and settled for a decision over Munguia on May 4th because he didn't want to embarrass his fellow Mexican. A sequence in the 12th round when Alvarez rocked Munguia prompted the discussion. Munguia wasn't asking for any favors and said he's certain Alvarez would have achieved the stoppage if the opportunity had truly been there.
It's the only way I can explain it. Why it seems like Canelo held off on finishing Jaime Munguia late into the fight, because it definitely looked like he did.
It was a good fight, he said then. It was a close fight, that's what I think. Then he watched the Canelo versus Berlanga fight, which was similar to his May 4th bout against Canelo in a couple of ways. Canelo won both by decision. He knocked down each challenger, Munguia in the 4th round and Berlanga in the 3rd. On the scorecards, however, Munguia was closer than Berlanga.
It was a good one for the fans, Munguia said. Having seen both fights, I do think Jaime put up more of a fight than Edgar Berlanga did.
The difference in their approach, being honest with you, is that Jaime was actually fighting to win. He was trying to win, whereas Edgar was trying not to get knocked out.
His approach was just a smidge more ambitious than what we got from Jermel Charlo last year.
And Jaime's approach was more ambitious than both. Jaime was stepping into his punches, trying to step into character, trying to land hard, where those other guys, they were just laying off because they didn't want to get hit. Munguia emphasized that he performed better than Berlanga. I had a better performance in several ways, Munguia said. I threw more punches. Eric Morales, who is back as Munguia's trainer, is also skeptical about the Canelo claim that he carried Munguia, who had Freddie Roach in his corner in May. I just don't believe it, said Morales, a Mexican legend and a 4-division champion from Tijuana who has gone back to work with Munguia after winning a seat in Mexico's federal government as a representative for the state of Baja. Meanwhile, it looks as if Munguia is already on Berlanga's radar. At a press conference following Canelo's victory, Munguia was the first name mentioned as a future foe by Berlanga by promoter Eddie Hearn. Of course, I am ready to fight anybody, said the 27-year-old Munguia, who is fighting for the second time within this year in Phoenix this weekend. He stopped John Ryder in January at the Footprint Center, fought Canelo in May, now he's fighting again tomorrow, saying, I'm just entering my prime. It's for this reason that I give Jaime Munguia the best chance, the best odds to become the face of this division, second only to Canelo, because he, unlike Edgar Berlanga, and he, unlike Jermel Charlo, Jaime's not a guy who showed up for a check. He showed up to win. He tried his best to stay in character. These other guys didn't. They were just happy to hear the final bell.
You notice that after Jermel Charlo fought Canelo, he took another hiatus from the sport, another long vacation.
Remember that he was coming off a lengthy stint of inactivity going into the Canelo fight. Now he's on another one after the Canelo fight. And how long will it take to get Edgar back in the ring now that he's fought Canelo? Whereas Jaime, he already fought Canelo in May and he's already back before the year is out. That's the kind of work ethic it takes. That's the kind of activity, schedule it takes to become the next face.
And many of the fights at super middleweight, the really good ones, Jaime stands a good chance of winning those fights. He could beat Edgar Berlanga. He could beat Caleb Plant. He could beat Christian Mabili.
Just imagine if he did. If he beat that run of fighters while cultivating Mexican support.
He could be the next face.
Got other guys like Bektamir Melikuziev, outliers like the winner of Skull versus Shishkin, as well as Diego Pacheco. I view Diego Pacheco as a potential hazard depending on when Jaime fights him. The sooner he fights him, the better. The longer it takes to make, the more Diego develops, the more dangerous he becomes.
Food for thought.
Though, like I said, a lot of these fights at 168 are winnable fights for Jaime Munguia, and that's the second best money fight around. It's Jaime Munguia. So a good number of these fighters are going to be willing to go through with that fight because it pays.
Understandably, a lot of the focus at 168 is all centered around what Canelo is doing and who Canelo is going to fight. When is Canelo going to fight? But this could help shift the focus a bit to the other guys that are there because it's actually a deep division.
See how Jaime makes out tomorrow.